finished the CEPA talks for this year. So this has really gained is of tremendous significance to us. We have the pleasure of inviting His Excellency High Commissioner Stuart Beck to give the opening remarks. High Commissioner Stuart Beck came to India in the year 2010 and he has made a tangible difference in the economic engagement between Canada and India on the ground. Your Excellency.
That are here. Kudos to the ICBC, and this is actually a type of session that I know a lot of people, business people in particular in India, would really enjoy the opportunity to sit and listen to. I'm actually quite excited to listen to Mr. Chatterjee today to see what he has to say, and the others who are on the dais. I think it's important to thank people who are sponsoring, and the government of Quebec, and Bombardier, Deloitte, LEA, Associates, and WSP for making the event happen. That's all very important, and it's covering a broad swath of interesting issues in the infrastructure area. You always get given speeches, and I sometimes feel sorry for the people who write these things in my office because I don't often follow them, and that's I don't know if that's good or bad, but they remind me of things to say when it comes time to talk. And I think there are certain important things that we're trying to accomplish here in India, and I think first and foremost, this is something I was discussing with Mr. Chatterjee in advance of coming up on the podium, but. The most important thing for us, I think, is establishing over, the fact that we were friends many, many years ago after independence. Canada, in a sense, was a mentor to India in terms of writing the Constitution, understanding how a country, and we're a small country in comparison to India, we're only 33 million people, how you can actually bring governance to bear, how you can graduate into a global community. It's taking a number of years for all of us to get to where we are today. And we were partners at the beginning in that process. And our prime ministers were good friends. At the bureaucratic level, we were good friends. And we were such good friends that we sold India its nuclear technology in the 60s. And unfortunately, that created the first problem in our relationship. And that was, for obviously strategic reasons, India exploded a nuclear device. And that put a chill in our relationship for a long period of time. And it happened again in the 90s. And so we've really had a rocky relationship. And I think now, today, we've understood that, one, that we have a very important diaspora, Indian diaspora in Canada, that is relevant to us, not just because these people engage at the financial and academic, but more importantly at the political level. We have 10 members of parliament in Canada that have Indian origins. They're very strong, very vocal. We have large communities in Canada. The Punjabi community is 50% of the Canadians of Indian origin. We have a large Gujarati community, 30%. These are people that want to see the relationship between Canada and India improved. And so what's happened in the last 6 years, I think, is a sea change in the relationship between our two countries. And I hope that where we are today, and those of us who are working in the High Commission, are riding that wave of popularity, if you want to call it that, between what's going on with our two countries. And I was just, again, saying to Chatterjee before coming to the podium that next week we'll be signing the administrative arrangements to the Nuclear Cooperation Agreement. What does that sound like? It sounds pretty bureaucratic, but it's actually not. It's really a significant time in our relationship. And that significance is because it now allows us to go back to that partnership on nuclear. India has developed its own technology, but that technology is based on Canadian technology. We've developed technology over the last 30 years, so now we can actually talk to each other and explore opportunities in third markets outside of India. And that's infrastructure. The infrastructure, of course, will happen in India, but it may also happen in places like Jordan or other countries where we could actually work together in the nuclear space. It will also allow us to sell Canadian uranium as the highest grade uranium, so we will be able to sell uranium again into India. So these are things that I think this is really an important time. Yes, the Nuclear Cooperation Agreement was fundamental to being able to do this, but without the administrative arrangements being signed, we couldn't have gone anywhere. And It was a function of both sides being flexible and both sides being creative and looking at opportunities, what I would say, outside the box. And that's fundamental when you take a look at moving things forward in a place like India and a place like Canada. You cannot approach the model and the paradigm in the way that we've always approached it. We have to look at opportunities and ways to succeed that are not traditional. And that's, again, a function of what we're doing in a global environment. And so when we talk about oil and gas, which is another infrastructure requirement, an absolute necessity in the context of India, without energy, India can't grow. India needs to look outside the box, right? The box has been the Middle East, traditionally. We know that North America is providing all sorts of opportunity. But when you take a look at North America, there are some challenges in working with the United States. Those challenges don't exist with Canada. And we sit on the third largest oil resources in the world, and we have more gas than we'll ever know what to do with. So the question is, how do we create a model that will allow us to capitalize on those resource opportunities? And this is something that we've been trying very hard, and I think we're succeeding, with India to make them understand that we can be that long-term, secure supplier of energy. And I would say it's more a hedge than perhaps the actual solution, because you will always run into strategic issues in dealing with the Middle East and possibly strategic issues in dealing with the United States. But with Canada as a hedge on a long-term basis, strategically it makes sense for India to do something like that. So when you talk about infrastructure and you take a look at the opportunities that are here in India, we know it's $1 trillion. There's no question. It's written into the 5-year plan. We know what needs to be done. But there are challenges in doing that. And one of them is you need the money to be able to build the infrastructure. And again, this is an area where Canada, because we have gone through the 2008 crisis unscathed in the financial sector, none of our banks were impacted by the crisis. We have the strongest pension funds in the world and the largest insurance companies in the world. These people have money. But you have to create an environment here in India that will convince people to come and do business. And this is, again, a challenge that we sometimes have in talking to our Indian colleagues. How do we create that environment which will be attractive to bring companies here? Companies like Manulife, well, Sun Life Bureau is already here, but you've got all the major banks in Canada here in India, but they're not participating in a way that they should be participating. So what is it going to take to do that? And that's, again, business will follow the opportunity. The opportunity has to be well presented. And this is why it's important that I think we've established a good relationship with the Planning Commission so that they understand what some of the concerns are that we would have from a Canadian perspective. And I think we're working in that direction. Nadira mentioned the Comprehensive Economic Partnership Agreement. Again, this is an excellent vehicle for us just to look outside the box and create an opportunity for Canada and India to build that partnership going into the future. And there are certain specific areas of tremendous importance to India that if we could come up with a solution to that, like we did on the administrative arrangements, other countries will take a look at it and say, if Canada can do that, maybe we can do that. And certainly for India, the movement of people is essential to that. And we have come up with, I think our people would say, a very creative and innovative approach to dealing with Move 4, which is the whole temporary worker and the movement of temporary workers, which is perhaps could be an example that other countries could take a look at, whether it's the EU, whether it's the United States. Countries of real significance to India, not that Canada isn't, but let's face it, we're a smaller market than the United States and the EU. So we can perhaps craft those types of arrangements in our agreement that will be really important and satisfactory in a global context for India. And I say the same thing for us. I mean, one of the key important areas, and we can bring money to the Indian government, but we have to have a different financial services arrangement in India that will be attractive to Canadian financial institutions. And to do that, maybe we can cross something like that in our system. And that would be a good thing that could perhaps be emulated in other places. So when we talk about infrastructure and the opportunities here in India, they're tremendous. But we have to think about ways to bring the right type of people into the market to be creative, but also to be successful. Because you don't want people to come here and fail. And that's not going to be good for anybody. It's certainly not going to be good for India. So building on the momentum, I think, that came from the last budget, which was a very rational and sensible approach to the next 12 months, we should be taking a look at other ways that the Canada-India relationship can be sensible and pragmatic and progressive. And that will make all the difference, I think, when it comes to where our future will be in terms of infrastructure and the other key strategic areas that we think we can add value in the context of the relationship. And those other key strategic areas outside of infrastructure, but there are all an infrastructure dimension to them. You know, food security, of course, we've been there for a long time. Education is an area where, in my mind, given that you're going to be adding 1 million people to the workforce every month for the next 20 years, it's an infrastructure issue that has to be addressed as an infrastructure issue. And we, again, can participate in that process and be quite successful. And then energy we've discussed, but these are all issues that will be fundamental to India's growth, and in the context of inclusive growth, economic development, the creation of wealth will float all of those. And that's so critical in the context of India's future in the 21st century. So I would say that it's bright. Infrastructure is a fundamental and critical area, and Canada can be a great partner in many different areas of that infrastructure paradigm. Now I'll just leave you with one last thought, because this is the area that all of it excites me, but this one in particular excites me, is that right now we have a group of young technology entrepreneurs in Canada looking at our innovation ecosystem. And this is again an area where you can create tremendous employment, and we've seen this because people look at Canada and say Canada is boring and conservative. And we've never had a history of entrepreneurship. But if you go to Toronto and Montreal and Waterloo and Vancouver, you will see a very dynamic innovation ecosystem that's built around universities and it's built around the private sector working together to create new companies. And that's how you create employment. And so those angel investors and venture capitalists from India and young technology entrepreneurs are taking a look at that ecosystem and are talking about how we can connect India to Canada. Even though it's thousands of miles apart, this can be done virtually. And this is what we're trying to build, where we can take young Indian entrepreneurs to Canada and vice versa, and build that ecosystem, which is really going to drive a lot of what the future will be and address some of the education issues that we talked about. How do you bring more of those people into the workforce and create jobs for not just themselves, but for the people that work for them? So that's a very exciting future, I think, and one where I get to report every day and I read it from end to end because it's just all good news, and you like to hear good news. So thank you very much, and have a good day.
Jeff had a very, very relevant talk. And yes, the chamber also, at the chamber also we feel that the infrastructure environment in India, the better it is, because if people from outside, from Canada especially, are coming in, they're putting in their energy and their money, then they need to be also reassured that the risk has to be lessened and the gains have to be outlined in a better manner so that we can attract more people to come in. And I think Ms. Sharmila Chavli, Joint Secretary, Ministry of Finance, would be a very good person to be able to tell us what is happening from their perspective, from the Ministry's perspective, on options for investment in infrastructure projects in India. And I would especially like to thank her because I know there's this question hour in Parliament, and there are probably questions there which Dr. Mahara was answering, but she has agreed to come and address on the past. Thank you, Mr.
His Excellency the High Commissioner, Mr. Chaturvedi, other distinguished speakers, and the very, very well-informed audience over here. First of all, I'd like to convey Dr. Arvind Mahara, Economic Affairs Secretary's apologies for not being here. He was scheduled to come, but like Nadira said, this is our question day in Parliament. He's conveyed his apologies and his best wishes for the conclave. And just to correct one statement, he doesn't answer the questions. It's the Minister who answers the questions, but he's there as backup. I just want to allude to a couple of things the High Commissioner had just said in the speech, and Nadira had also picked up on. One is the need for the environment to be improved for Canadian investors or Canadian entities to come into India into the infrastructure space. And the second is, what the High Commissioner has said, the need for new methods of engagement with India. There is an underlying story to India. We are very, very confident that despite a couple of blips in the last couple of years, we will see a rosy picture. And I'd like to very clearly tell you why we have this confidence. First, the recent business cycle induced impact of a slowdown in investment, a slowdown in capital expenditure. In spite of that, and the savings ratios have gone down. In spite of that, the savings and investment ratios right now, over the last decade, if you trend the lines, they are reminiscent of the high-growth East Asian economies in the past. Second, as the High Commissioner had said, we have a very, very young population with a predominance of working-age people, and over half the population of India is in its 20s. And according to a recent IMF study, India's demographic dividend, which we keep talking about, could add about 2% to the per capita GDP growth over the next 2 decades. Our labour force is expected to grow by 32% over the next 20 years. I'll come later to the challenges also that this poses to the economy. We have a hugely growing middle class group, which the Secretary is fond to call of second Europe. We have a Europe in India in terms of size. So the demand story is very, very intact. Lastly, on the infrastructure fund, which I'll be addressing at length over here, on infrastructure in social and physical infrastructure, combined with the application of cutting-edge technology, which the High Commissioner has alluded to, we are bound to see an improvement over the next few years. These are the primary underlying factors behind our growth prospects. They're supported by many other drivers, and this story is recognized internationally. As I was telling someone yesterday in another forum, India hasn't positioned its Indian rupee as a convertible exchange outside of India. In spite of this, the 2 largest mercantile exchanges in the world have started rupee trading, Indian rupee trading, in the month of January. And over the last 4 years, you will find that rupee traded derivatives have grown by 260%. Compared to, say, I'm just taking China as an example because that's a normal comparator everyone uses. In spite of positioning the RMB as a future reserve currency, the RMB has grown in the same segment by only 140%. We are not taking credit for this. This is done in spite of that. So in spite of what we haven't done. But this means there is a story that is being recognized outside of India. The strong fundamentals of the economy are well recognized, and essential factor is the growth drivers continue to be domestic. This has also posed a challenge because on the supply side we have had constraints, and that brings me to the theme of what I'm going to talk about now, the infrastructure problems that we have been facing. In terms of the GDP growth, we had averaged an 8.7% per year during the 5-year period 2003 to 8. This was contributed to by all the 3 major sectors, that's agriculture, industry and services. Even after the global financial crisis, and a fairly fragile and uneven recovery worldwide, and the effect that it's had post-crisis in India, our estimated growth rate of 6.5 to 5.5 in the last year would imply that overall in the last decade, the growth rate increase has been 8.4%. On the money side, the financial side that the High Commissioner had spoken of, the Indian stock market in the last 5 years has been the second best performing market among the major markets in the world. It's only next to the Kospi in Korea. We have the largest number of listed companies in any exchange in the world. In terms of global rankings, the NSE ranks as the 3rd largest exchange in the world in terms of number of contracts traded in stock futures and also in index futures, and has the 2nd position in index options. We also have one of the oldest exchanges in the world, the BSE. On the foreign investment front, the government of India has been trying to liberalize its FDI regime and make it transparent. Most activities are on the automatic route. We have a lot of Canadian investors also here. And these strong economic fundamentals and the liberalization, which is very calibrated, of the FDI policy, have helped increase our integration with the world economy and helped FDI flows grow about 20 times since the opening up of the economy 20 years ago. And as per an UNCTAD report recently, India ranks number 2 as a destination for global FDI. And there's a suggestion that FDI inflow would revive to around 40 billion per year in the next few years. In order to attract greater foreign investment, all of you are aware of what the Finance Minister said in his budget speech. We have a current account deficit, and for us, in the Finance Minister's words, foreign inflows are an imperative, they're not a choice. We have been taking concerted efforts to attract greater foreign investment with a special thrust on the availability of offshore funds for infrastructure development. We've also taken several important policy initiatives, including progressive enhancement in the limit for foreign institutional investment in various categories of debt securities, allowing qualified foreign investors access to the Indian capital market, and we are engaging in periodic liberalization and rationalization of the external commercial borrowing policy. We are aware of the need for various structural reforms in many sectors. To paraphrase what the High Commissioner has said, India also poses a lot of challenges for foreign investors. These challenges are sometimes just a perception problem. When you're not in India, it's very difficult to get spooked by what you read about India. You have a blast somewhere, it seems scary. A lot of embassies issue advisories. For people in India, including Canadian companies in India, when you're on the ground, the perception here is very different, which is one of the reasons why we encourage country-to-country contact in various terms, where you come to the field. But how do you come to the field when you have these perceptions? It's the chicken-egg conundrum. One of the things that we're trying to do is to correct this perception problem. I just list a couple of these steps that have been taken of late. One is the national manufacturing policy was cleared about 1 year ago. It seeks to increase the sectoral share of manufacturing in GDP from 16% to at least 25% by 2022, and to create 100 million additional jobs by 2022. I'm sure Mr. Chaturvedi will be talking about this in his keynote address, so I won't go further into this. In order to cater to this large number of people who are entering the labour force, we have launched a national skill development mission. That is a PPP initiative that aims to skill people by 2022. In the last 1.5 years of its inception, we've already trained 380,000 young people, and we have placed 260,000 of them in jobs. We are trying to move them up the skill ladder so that it isn't the really basic construction work, etc. We take people from this level and we skill them upwards. We are working very closely with industry councils in India, and we are also engaging with successful industry guilds in countries like Germany to see where self-certification ensures that the people who are coming out of these have employable skills. We have set up a cabinet committee on infrastructure, which is meant to de-bottleneck the delays. We all accept that there have been huge delays in project implementation, caused not so much by the project risks, but because of delays in clearances. The CCI was set up 2-3 months ago. It's just picking up steam. It will be meeting twice a month from now on, and it's already cleared projects which have been held up for various reasons, I think including in the energy sector and in the power sector. One of the areas that we are looking at for active involvement of major funds from abroad, including the Canadian pension funds, the High Commissioner had mentioned Manulife, they've been in touch with us. We have introduced something called the infrastructure debt funds. IDFs are not a new instrument. They have been created elsewhere in the world. In India, we have tried to approach the IDFs with the perspective of a foreign investor who's trying to come in here for the first time. We had the non-banking financial company approach the IDF NBFCs, which basically offers a potential long-term investor de-risked projects. The investors who come in will basically be facing or given a menu of projects which are 1 year of commercial operation post-COD. Plus, they are underwritten by the sovereign guarantee, implicit sovereign guarantee. There is no risk. The returns that these projects offer you would be, even if you take a rupee volatility and the implicit hedging that you require, will give you a return of 4 to 5% higher than anything you can get in the West, which is perhaps the reason why major pension funds from Australia, Canada, the US Korea have been approaching us, because if you are receiving a 2 to 3% return on your pension funds abroad, in the developed country, if here we give you a pension fund return of about 11 to 12%, subtract the 5 to 6% hedging cost that you need, you're ending up with a return of about 6%, which I think is fantastic. So it doesn't make sense for people not to be coming into these IDFs. We have about a dozen IDFs which are going to be functioning by the end of this month or next month. We have 3 already in the field. The Finance Minister and the Secretary have been out on road shows to the major countries in the East and in London. They will be going to the US and Canada within the next couple of months. We expect that the IDFs, which are private entities, will be accompanying them to these road shows, and they will be presenting the menu of projects that are ready for takeout finance. We have some members in the audience here who are sponsors of the IDFs, and I assume that during the course of the day they'll give you the details of these schemes also. Basically what we're trying to say is the India story exists. We are aware of the perceived risks that you may from the outside see in India. The returns we offer take care of that risk perception, and the returns are higher than you get in the West. We have a fairly proactive system of responding to either suggestions or ideas for exchanging and improving the products that we have. Our Finance Minister keeps telling us that we don't have the luxury of time. We should be doing everything yesterday. So given that kind of an approach to the need to attract investment to infrastructure in India, I can assure you that from the Ministry of Finance's side, we will be willing to engage with you at all levels. There are various opportunities for you to invest, either in the consulting field, in the investment field, or even in construction. If you have any hesitation of how to do about it, the best way to do it is to approach a credible partner in India who knows the ground reality. Once you do that, you'll find that the familiarity builds up. And for anyone not to buy into the India story, to me just doesn't make sense, to put it very crudely. So come in, we are here to help you, and we welcome any kind of engagement with Canada especially, with whom we've had a long history, like the High Commissioner said, of good relations. Thank you.
Thank you for putting across the India story so well, and I'm sure everybody is reassured about what in the Indian environment and what the government's efforts are to improve it even further. Floor Daniel is one company that came in and has had a success story in India, and I would like to invite Mr. Arun Jain, Managing Director of Floor Daniel, to share Floor's experience and journey in India, and also to share his insights of the potential and challenges of executing large-scale infrastructure projects in India. Thank you.
I'd like to thank ICBC and Deloitte for affording us the privilege to share the story of Fluor's journey in India, what worked for us and what hasn't worked for us in near 18 years. Fluor is a global engineering and construction company with extensive operations in Canada and is headquartered in the USA. So why did we come to India? I guess we saw a huge door of opportunity, we said push. But closer to reality, I believe we followed the lead of some of our international clients. Fluor established a beachhead in India in 1995, and we started with, as usual, as most people do, started with a complement of experienced expatriates, some locally hired consultants, and a few compliance staff. As you would expect, we were circumspect and reached out essentially to a trusted overseas clients who were intending to set up shop in India. We executed a couple of feasibility studies from them, and then an international client of ours decided to open a factory near Delhi. This was good news for us and led us to our first substantial project on the ground in India. It was an automotive components plant for Delphi, which was then a division of General Motors. And then we decided to bid hard for a major refinery project in Western India, land J1, and we lost badly. That was the first lesson in doing business in unfamiliar territory. You never rush headlong without adequate preparation. We stepped back and refocused our energy on gradually building our strength. Since then, we have grown to about 400 employees in the next 5 years, and then doubled our size to 800 in the subsequent 5 years. And after that, it's been even more measured growth, and today we are 1,400. But in this exciting journey that we've had so far, we've also been subjected to market cycles, and have been hit by recessions in 2003 and 2008. The 2003 downturn really caught us off guard, and it hit us hard, and we dwindled in size. However, wiser, we rebuilt ourselves with a better staffing mix and a wider and more balanced work portfolio of different diverse business lines and clientele. This helped us tide over the 2008 recession with relatively little trauma. And we've made our share of mistakes, but to our credit, we've never made a mistake twice. Let us look at our growth pattern and what helped us. As I told you, our inability to make a dent in the local market in the initial years led us to rethink our strategy. And at that point of time, the exploding world of information technology opened a new world for us. It was now feasible for us to execute global infrastructure projects while deploying virtual teams. We were able to move engineering work from our global offices, Canada and elsewhere, to New Delhi. This was really a winning stroke. This gave us opportunities to work on worldwide projects such as the Western Canadian oil sands projects, the US clean fuels projects, and oil exploration projects in Russia. In this process, we have gained a global execution experience, which again has helped us to prepare for our relaunch in the Indian market. So what helped us grow actually in India? You've heard of business icons like Rochal and Bartlett who say that basically companies can grow globally largely in 3 dimensions: efficiency, responsiveness to local needs, and innovation. And our India story in large measure mirrors these findings. So let me elaborate. We started targeting innovative niche technology segments, examples being ultra-pure polysilicon production and coke gasification. We also did another thing, which is follow the client's money. So if it comes to India, examples are Delphi, Cytec, Rio Tinto, Procter & Gamble. We also secured regional alliances with large international clients who work in India, for example, BASF. And last but not least, we also filled crucial gaps in local skill sets. For example, program management of large complex projects. A recent example is the multi-billion-dollar J3 program for Reliance. One we have to ask, has our stay contributed to the Indian growth story? I would say yes, indeed. We have helped create Indian MNCs and help them build successful products internationally. An example is ONGC, who set up their gas plant in southern Russia, and now Videocon, who is setting up an LNG terminal in Mozambique. We've also helped Indian companies plan and execute mega investment projects. An example being Jindal for the very ambitious coal to liquids program. We are also assisting Indian companies in securing international financing. For example, Exim financing for the Reliance Jamnagar project. Another thing which we're doing is enabling local Tier 2 and Tier 3 companies to acquire business in international markets by lending them access via structured global pre-qualification programs so that they can bid for projects outside India. Our story also includes some social commitments. One aspect has been our vigorous implementation of construction worker safety practices and training that has opened a whole new world for and earned the admiration of local construction workers and contractors. Even back in 1996, when it was a rarity, we introduced compulsory donning of personal protective equipment. On our BSF project at Dahej, we are incentivizing craft worker safety standards, especially working at heights. You still see people in Delhi working at heights without harnesses. Electrical safety, working in confined spaces. We see people at sites who sleep against mud walls, deep down in the pit. We've also required local contractors to follow sustainable construction practices. Doing simple things, like not storing diesel drums on the ground so that the leakage of the diesel does not contaminate the soil. Simple stuff like that. On another front, we continue to be a great advocate for gender diversity, something which is really required in this nation. We believe that men and women working together, and this has meant that the face of our workforce has changed. When we started out, we were less than 4% of women in our workforce. Today we have 22%, which is a sizable number for an engineering-based company. We have also helped improve the lot of female construction workers. On our projects, we have designed special training programs for them, special safety gear, and this again from our first project in the 1990s. So what does the future hold for us in India? With more than $1 trillion or more of infrastructure investment planned in the next few years, we lay great store by the business opportunities in India, especially in the foreign business segments. Clean fuels like LNG, old vehicles via gasification, renewable energy, solar, and we specialize in offshore wind farms, and also large infrastructure projects like refineries. It could be by private refiners or by NOCs, chemical plants, and large power plants. A subject that I'd like to briefly dwell upon is project execution excellence. We believe that India needs radically more efficient execution approaches towards infrastructure development. This means that embracing new methods, adopting best practices, building relationships based on transparency and trust among stakeholders, developing an exhaustive permitting plan, effective cost control, and employing sustainable construction practices. And we continue to believe that infrastructure projects need the experience and rigor brought in by experienced global contractors such as Fluor with mega project execution management skills. I am happy to share that we, Fluor, have been chosen by Reliance Industries to manage its flagship $15 billion Jamnagar 3 expansion program. I would say that the business environment here is fairly conducive. However, a more collaborative approach between the government and industry would help propel construction of infrastructure projects. Among other things, time-bound and unambiguous permitting processes and business-friendly transfer pricing and dividend repatriation mechanisms will encourage more global engineering and construction companies to offer their expertise to build crucial infrastructure projects on schedule and within budget. And this will also have a collateral benefit of development of a sustainable pipeline of skilled indigenous project managers, planners, and engineers who can then transform the construction landscape later. We've had a very eventful journey thus far in India, and we believe the future holds immense potential for both us and the country. I would say it is for us to exploit it. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you, and if you have any questions, I'll be glad to answer.
Thank you, Arun. We are very fortunate and privileged to have Mr. B.K. Chaturvedi, Member Planning Commission, amongst us to deliver the keynote address and to hear him speak on the opportunities in India and the India story. I think we would be very, very happy to hear you, sir. Just wanted to mention that Mr. Chaturvedi has had a very long and distinguished career as a civil servant and rose to the highest position.
Excellency Mr. Stuart Beck, High Commissioner of Canada to India, distinguished members of the dais, friends. It's a matter of great happiness for me to speak once again on a very interesting area of developing infrastructure investments in India and developing collaborative relationship with a very old partner, Canada. Canada and India, as the High Commissioner mentioned, have long relationships. When the Indian Constitution was being framed, as very rightly remarked, one of the models we considered was the Canadian Constitution, and many of the federal structures and provisions are actually based on that. And I recall when, as a member of the 13th Finance Commission, when the Finance Commission wanted to study the federal devolutions and what should be the relationship between the states and the federation, one of the countries we chose was Canada. We went and studied there and what are the methods by which the federal government devolves its money on the states, what are the characteristics and what are the areas. And we also went down then to study the relationship at the level of municipalities, because we also wanted to study at the third tier how does the money devolve on that, and it was a great learning. And let me say that not only the 13th Finance Commission, we were seeing the history of successive Finance Commissions, and one of the areas which they have always thought of studying, two old partners, Canada is one of them, and Australia, which is another federal structures. So from that angle, we have a long relationship. The High Commissioner mentioned about the starting point of the Tarapur plant and how the relationship developed, and it was the first one where we worked on in this area for a long time. So it's really a matter of great happiness for me once again to see how we can develop this relationship, and in an area which is important now for both the countries. India has launched this 12th five-year plan. The plan has envisaged an investment of $1 trillion. We did around $500 billion in the 11th plan, which was 2007-2012, now 2012-17. We are looking for an investment of $1 trillion. Now, true, the economy is not growing at this juncture at the rate at which we thought it would, but you know, the Indian economy has always had in the last couple of years this thing that while we have grown at a very rapid rate, but increasingly now that we are getting more integrated with the global economy, our export share in the GDP used to be around 15%. Today it is now around 23%, so much more integrated now with the global economy. So their impact on us is now much more. But nevertheless, India has, as part of its strategy for growth, chosen development of infrastructure. And Planning Commission study and global studies show that infrastructure is one area which has very strong relationship with growth. So we are sure that as investments come in this area, there are huge opportunities in this sector, which I will presently come to. There will be certainly growth over there. Let me start, first of all, with the broad structure of where these investments are planned in India. Of the $1 trillion, roughly around $300 billion are expected, according to us, in the field of power and power transmission and power generation. Roughly around $150 to $200 billion are expected in the field of roads, road infrastructure, rural roads, urban roads, and all this will also form part of this. In the field of telecom, we also expect anywhere around $150 to $200 billion again of that. Then in the field of railways, we are expecting somewhere around $100 billion of investments from the private sector over a period of the entire plan. Then rest in the field of port and airport. then in the field of other infrastructure, major being pipelines, gas pipelines. We are expecting a lot of investments in this sector. We are trying to expand the gas pipelines across and build up more than around 20,000 kilometers of pipelines in this area, in this period. So there's a huge investments now planned in these areas. As you will notice, the details of it you will find very much on the website, in the plan document. Most of these are very much needed. Let me mention possibilities of these relationships for investments in India. First of all, in the field of power. In the field of power, there are two areas where there are very strong possibilities. First of all, as the High Commissioner mentioned earlier, possibilities of gas. Canada has, and in the oil and gas sector, Canada has huge oil sands. They are, in fact, one of the world's largest reserves in the field of oil. It has not been exploited over a period of years, but this is a huge reserve. And India has, for its energy security, been so far, though it's dependent so far on a lot of it in the Middle East, gradually as a part of its strategy, it's diversifying into other areas. We have gone into Africa, when in some of the areas, starting from Nigeria, Angola, and other areas. But we have gone into South America for heavy oil, but we have to also go now and explore Canada for this purpose. There's a good relationship possibilities. There are investment possibilities of taking oil from the eastern shore, and in case they are able to, it's quite possible that the whole thing will be viable. So we are working on this possibility. And I think if this happens, it will be yet more major source of oil for us. And even though it may be heavy oil, but let me say that Reliance in its refinery has used huge amount of heavy oil, getting it from South America, and with great advantage. And today the Indian refineries are getting reconfigured to use all sorts of oil, heavy oil, light oil. So it will be really a major advantage. It could be used, in fact, a lot of it could be used, heavy oil, for preparing a lot of LPG, which is required here. So there's huge possibility, first of all, on that. Second, on gas itself, there are possibilities getting it from the eastern shore. Technical, now these things are being worked out, how this can be done. A number of companies have gone from India, some of them have opened offices over there. In case we are able to get gas. Today in India, we have problems that the gas-based plants, which were dependent very heavily on the gas from the KG-D6 basin, are running at a very low capacity. Many of them are in fact running at around 30-35%. That's the average capacity at which the gas-based plants are running because of the shortage of gas. Now in case we are able to get gas from there at another competitive rate, then this, which will be naturally the liquefied natural gas, this coming from some of the possibilities from American, the US gas, that will really help us reduce the overall market for the price of LNG. It will become more competitive, and that will help us expand the gas market in India and use it to pipeline. That's another, it will help us to use it for our power plants. Our power plants where investments have been made or are planned, they would run better. It could be used for fertilizers. We are planning a number of fertilizer plants in the press plan. A lot of this therefore could result in a huge economic activity in the country. So this is a major area. Yet another area in the field of power is in the field of power transmission lines. India has allowed private sector to invest in power transmission lines. We are in the 12th plan planning a huge infrastructure of 765 kV, 400 kV lines. At all voltages, different voltages, these lines are being planned. We are also also planning a huge amount of supportive infrastructure of transformers with it. Now, Canada has a huge experience in this area, and I think this is an area where investment from them would really help in developing the infrastructure for us, both in the states and with the central utilities, which is the power grid. This is another area which power transmission systems, because this is going to be a very important area of cooperation between two countries. A third area where I feel a lot of collaboration can come between the two countries is the area of mining. See, Canada has huge experience in mining today. They have been doing, of course, potash mining, which India has been buying the rate of potash, but they have a huge experience in mining over there. Today in India, we had allotted around 200 blocks of coal for coal mining to private players for captive allocations. There are a large number of blocks now with them. A number of, gradually the Coal India will also like, I'm sure, to have the most modern technology to use for mining. This is an area where many of the technologies being used in the mining sector could be greatly collaborative and could be of great use for us in this. This is an area I consider hugely important for us, because as we go into the 12th plan and the 13th and the 14th plan, we would be expanding our mining in coal and in other areas. And this is an area I consider hugely important, therefore. An area which was mentioned earlier and which is a good development, and I'm sure that now there's a question of building up on it, which the High Commissioner mentioned, was the area of atomic energy. In the field of nuclear power, we have at this moment around 4,800 megawatts of power. We are adding another 2,000 megawatts in the next year. The two Kulam plants coming up. But we have huge possibility and huge plans. We are thinking of expanding it to gradually by around 40,000 megawatts by around 2025, 2030. New power plants are coming up. Now, all this will require, some of it which is based on domestic manufacturing capabilities of nuclear power plants. All this will require huge amounts of nuclear fuel. Our power plants till we had this agreement was running at around 45 to 50% of capacity. After we had the nuclear suppliers agreement, and now they are running at around 80% of capacity. It is important that as we expand these capacities and as more nuclear fuel is available, we use that for running them at higher capacity, at full capacities, and at the same time use the enormous technological development which has taken place in Canada mutually for the development of technologies in India and for a learning process in both the countries. Two other areas where there are, I see possibilities. One is in the area of airport infrastructure and port infrastructure. We have at this moment the port infrastructure at around 1150 million tons. That's the broad numbers. We added, in fact, we had around 700 million tons at the end of the 11th plan. We added around 500 million tons during this plan. In the 12th plan, we are thinking of taking this to anywhere around 1,800 to 2,000 million tons. It's a huge investment, both in the private sector, which is at the non-major port, as well as at the major port. Now, these investments will require huge facilities and development of ports, of development of new berths, development of new players who could participate in that. This is another area which investments are planned by us. We are already in the number of states. You will find states like Orissa, Gujarat, Andhra Pradesh. They are planning a number of terminals. That's another major area. Yet another important area which is planned for expansion is the area of airport. We are thinking of, just now we are working on these, we worked on these two major airports, Mumbai and Delhi, but work is also going on at Bangalore at this moment for expansion. But we are also thinking now, apart from Navi Mumbai, we are thinking around 15 other airports taking up for public-private partnership. Those have been in 1995, and a number of other airports being taken up by the Airport Authority of India for its expansion. And all that will require